Assalamu alaikum everybody. I hope you guys' Ramadan has been going well. Hope you guys are continuing to be safe and healthy, inshallah. Just a couple announcements before we continue with our program. As every night, our program starts at 5:30 to 6 with a children's program. It is a Kids production. It's called the Ramadan Show. If you have young children who are participating in the activities that they are doing in the program, we do encourage all parents to please send those pictures and videos in at info@kisakids.org. From 6 to 7 is the recitation of the Holy Quran. This is a collaborative effort of all the various centers, so we do encourage everyone to please listen and tune in. From 7 to 7:30 is a recitation of Dua Iftitah. And then from 7:30 to Maghrib is our speech for tonight. Every Tuesday through Saturday, we do have special programs. You can find those in our announcements or in the weekly emails. They usually start at 9:15 after Maghrib. So do encourage everyone to attend and tune into those as well. One final announcement is that Saba is continuing its iftar drive, where we are packaging groceries for families of 4 for enough food for a week. Alhamdulillah, we had a good turnout today. Most of our bags were picked up or delivered. We do have some bags left over. If anyone's interested, tomorrow, Monday, from 12 to 2 p.m., you can just drive up and we can put those in your car for you. Just to introduce our speaker for tonight, we're blessed to have Seyed Musawi here with us. He was born and raised in Southern California. After studying Middle Eastern history at University of California, San Diego, he traveled to the holy city of Qom, where he began his Hausa studies. He spent 8 years studying there with a particular focus on Islamic jurisprudence and history. He is currently active with the Noor Collective Center in San Diego. Please help me invite him up with a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله من شر الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أعوذ بالله من شر الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Inshallah, I'm going to be continuing with a tradition of the month of Ramadan, and then we're going to pick up where we left off last night. There was a small story that was left out that I wanted to, inshallah, narrate before going on to the subject of tonight's speech, which is going to be the question of why bad things happen to good people. Beginning with the tradition, there is a narration from the Holy Prophet where he said that if the servant knew the true value of the month of Ramadan, they would wish that the entire year was Ramadan. So Rasulullah, through this tradition, he's really trying to give us a sense that this month is a month of unbelievable spiritual blessings. And I think going back to that topic of the first day that we were talking about, how when the month ends, there's that bittersweet feeling that we feel. It goes back to this tradition that we do have a sense that when this month has finished, we've lost something very valuable. So there's this sense of loss that we feel, this sense of separation that we feel. And I think that on one level, we're not going to really understand the depths of what we're losing until the akhirah, until we actually see what this month truly represented and what kind of blessings we were receiving as a result. As a quick recap of last night's lecture, I was talking about spirituality and how we can, inshallah, better connect to Allah. And I mentioned 3 points at the end of the speech. That the first point was that we need to, number one, slow down and try to be more present. That one of the issues that we face in the modern day world especially is that there is a lot of noise, right? Everything is moving at warp speed, that we need to kind of slow things down a little bit so that we can be present and that we can see the signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has all around us. So that was the first sign. The second was that we can better connect to Allah through a sense of thankfulness. That if we are thankful, we are acknowledging the things which Allah has given to us, And through that sense of thankfulness, we can become closer to our Creator. And the third and final point, which I didn't really get a chance to fully explain, is always having a very good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, this one I know, it sounds a little bit strange because when we think about it, how is it that someone can have a bad opinion about Allah? Everyone is going to have a good opinion. Of course, He's the Creator. But the truth of it, my brothers and sisters, is that many times when we look at people and we talk to people, many times people, because of the experiences that they've had in this world and because of a misunderstanding or a improper way of looking at the world, something bad has happened to them, and as a result, they feel as if Allah was punishing them. We feel a sense that, for example, Allah was putting me through a difficult time, He was giving me a very difficult test, and then we ask the question, why does Allah do this with us? I prayed, I fasted, I did all of these things. And this is actually the lecture that we're going to be discussing tonight, inshallah. So going back to this idea of having a good opinion of Allah, there's a narration that a scholar narrated for me, and it's really a beautiful story that I wanted to narrate for you as well. In this story, it's been mentioned that when the Day of Judgment comes, just imagine that the Day of Judgment has come and you are being judged individually for all of the good and all of the evil that you've done. So it's been narrated that the Day of Judgment comes, an individual is going to come before Allah. Allah is going to stand in judgment for this individual, and He's going to look at all of the good that he has done, and He's going to look at all of the evil that he has done. He's going to do his calculations, and He's going to tell the individual that, oh my servant, the evil that you have done is more than the good that you have done. He calls upon the angels, He says, angels, come, take this individual into the hellfire. Now, I just want you to imagine this, that you are there on the Day of Judgment. You are perhaps watching this scene. This individual is being dragged into the fire of hell. The fire of hell is roaring in front of him. As he is being dragged into the fire of hell, it's narrated that he continues to look back. He keeps looking back. When Allah sees this, He calls on the angels. He says, angels, wait, bring him back to me. The angels, they bring back this individual, and Allah, He asks him, oh my servant, why did you keep looking back as you were being taken away to the fire of hell? The individual is going to say, Ya Rabbi, I thought that you would forgive me for my sins. I had another expectation of you. That from all of the things that I had heard about this Creator, I had heard that this Creator is a merciful Lord, He's a forgiving Lord. And I thought that you would forgive me for my sins. This was what I thought. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears this, He tells the angels that, oh angels, I have forgiven him his sins because of that hope and that expectation that he had of me. And so, my brothers and sisters, one of the things that can save us, not just in this world, but also potentially in the hereafter, is having this positive view of Allah. Not being pessimistic when it comes to how we see the Creator. Now, the topic that I wanted to go into tonight, inshallah, is the topic of why do bad things happen to good people. Because if we go back to that first night's speech, one of the things that I wanted to do was, what we want to do is we want to actually enhance our connection with Allah during this month of Ramadan. And one of the things that tends to block our connection with Allah is if we have any pessimism, or if we have any doubts, or if we have any questions in regards to what Allah does and how He has created this world, then this becomes one of the greatest preventative measures or preventative blocks that we have towards connecting with Allah. So let's inshallah work on this topic and let's go through this together. When we look at the world of today, and this is especially interesting because we are living in the era of this coronavirus. If we look at this time period that we're in, especially right now, really there's fear everywhere. Everywhere that we look, people have this palpable sense of fear, right? And so there's fear really everywhere in the world that you go, every nation that you visit, the people are living in a state of fear. You try to go into a store, you try to go to the gym, wherever you go, the stores are closed, right? Everything is shut down. The people are even afraid to leave their homes. What's interesting about this is that that feeling of invincibility that we had before, it was an illusion, But that feeling of invincibility that we had before is completely gone. And instead of that feeling of invincibility, now it's been replaced by a very powerful sense of mortality. And we very acutely feel this sense of suffering that people are going through. Before, kind of, we were in this cushion, right? We were living in this bubble. But now we really feel, my God, it could be me. Even though if you look at the statistics, it's really not that bad. But, that doesn't make us feel any better. That everyone feels this sense that, my God, I could be next. I could be one of those statistics. It was interesting because I remember a month or two ago, even before all of this coronavirus had hit, one day I received word that one of my old friends had passed away. And I was really surprised at the news because he was even younger than I was. He was around 32 years old. And I said, what happened to him? How did he pass away? And they said that, well, he was sleeping and he seems to have fallen out of his bed. He hit his head on the ground and that created a blood clot. And then he passed away from that blood clot. So really, this idea that the world is filled with suffering and there's all of this fear, this coronavirus has removed it. It was always there. But we had this illusion that, for example, me, I'm safe. It's never going to happen to me. So my brothers and sisters, the world is a world which is filled with all of these difficulties that we're going through. And so when it comes to these difficulties that we're all facing, there is a very powerful sense that every individual wants the easy life. If I could somehow, sign away something, if I could just snap my fingers and this coronavirus and all of these difficulties would be gone, that would be the most amazing thing ever. I mean, just imagine this idea that if an angel was to come down right now, and the angel was to say that I have brought a sign-up sheet from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if you sign your name on the sign-up sheet, you are never going to go through any difficulties in life. Just imagine the line for that sign-up sheet, right? Right now people are signing up for unemployment, right? This would be something completely different. People would be fighting each other, people would be stampeding trying to get to that sign-up sheet. Because as human beings, right, we want a life that has no difficulties. We want a life that is completely easy. We want a life where we would never work, where we would never see death, where we would never see any suffering at all. This is all of what we are seeking. Now, as a human being, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's created us in this way. He's created us in a way that we go towards pleasure and we recoil away from pain. And Allah has created us like this. There's a few different reasons, but one of the reasons is that if we are to survive on this earth, then we naturally need this, because if we didn't have this drive to go towards pleasure, then we would always be, for example, we would be ambivalent. We wouldn't care if there is something dangerous for us. And then we would put ourselves into dangerous situations and we would die. But as a result of this nature which Allah has given to me, I look around the world and I ask a very important question, that Allah created me like this, then why is it that I see so much suffering and so much pain in the world around me? Why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the Almighty, He is the one who has all the knowledge. Why is it that He allows all of these difficulties and all of this suffering to take place? I mean, we see it on a day-to-day basis. We see bankruptcies and we see messy divorces. We see people's children getting sick and dying. And the question comes that why is it that these individuals are going through these difficulties? And in fact, it seems like the best of people, they go through the worst of things. The most mu'min of the believers, the ones who pray, the ones who fast, it seems that they go through the greatest of difficulties. And when we begin to look at the life of Rasulullah, the beloved of Allah, the one who is the closest to Allah, we see that he himself, he says that I have undergone the greatest amount of hardship than anyone else. This is Rasulullah, this is Allah's most beloved servant. He is the one that is struggling in the path of Allah from morning to night. He is saying that the torments that I have gone through, the difficulties that I have gone through, the suffering that I have gone through, it is more than anyone else on this earth. And again, we look at Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, just look at his life. Difficulty after difficulty. We look at Fatima al-Zahra. We look at all of the members of the Ahlul Bayt. And what we're seeing is that we are seeing that each and every one of them is undergoing unbelievable hardship throughout their lives. They're going through a great deal of suffering. And so the question then comes, why is it that the Ahlul Bayt, those who are the closest to Allah, they are going through this level of hardship? But then it gets very strange, my brothers and sisters, because when we look at the ahadith, do you know who has the easiest of lives? The ahadith, they mention something that will shock you. The traditions, they mention that the Fir'aun, who was the Fir'aun? The Fir'aun was an individual who would kill people. The Fir'aun was an individual that would torture people. He would kill babies that had just been born from their mothers. He even went to the point where he said that I am the Lord Most High. In the traditions, it's been mentioned that Fir'aun, he never suffered anything in his life at all. He didn't even suffer from a common cold, not even once. So now we're juxtaposing these things. Explain this to me. How is it that the ones that are the closest to Allah, they are doing everything for Allah, they are going through all of these difficulties, but the Fir'aun, the individual who kills and tortures and kills babies and even claims divinity, this individual, he doesn't suffer in the least. He doesn't even get a single cold. How do we explain this? How do we justify this? This is a question, isn't it? It's an important question that we have to resolve for ourselves. There's a few points, my brothers and sisters, that I want to go through at this point. Point number one, difficulties are a way of making our lives enjoyable. How? That makes absolutely no sense. How do difficulties make our lives enjoyable? In fact, the entire week where we are suffering through the difficulties of work, although now we have the coronavirus, most people are semi-off, but under normal circumstances where we are suffering through the work week, what are we looking forward to? We're looking forward to the weekend. So how is this? How is it that the difficulties are what makes our lives enjoyable? Is this some sort of a sadistic statement that I'm making? Let me throw this example out there, inshallah. Imagine that you had had a long week working at your job, yes? And that eventually you were waiting for that Saturday to come so that you don't do anything. The Saturday rolls around and you have the absolute laziest Saturday. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, we had Saturday morning cartoons. I don't know if that still exists. I don't think so. But we were always waiting so that we could just sit in front of the television, relax, and just watch these cartoons for 4 or 5 hours. But just imagine, take yourself back to one of those lazy Saturdays that you've had. You didn't do a single productive thing. The question I'm going to ask you is, how did you feel at the end of that Saturday? You felt terrible, didn't you? Now, some people are going to say, no, I felt great. It was an amazing day. It was wonderful. But the truth of it is that you feel useless. You feel pointless. You feel as if there's no joy left in life. And the secret of it is here, my brothers and sisters, that if you look back at the times of difficulty, just imagine that, for example, you were taking the last series of your final exams at university and you were about to graduate. You're struggling, you're striving. But when you finish, just remember that feeling of joy, that feeling of accomplishment that you had. It was the greatest feeling in the world, wasn't it? And when we juxtapose these two opposites, we realize that it is the difficulties that make my life worth living. It is the difficulties which actually give joy to my life. This is the first point. The second point, my brothers and sisters, is that difficulties are a means of actually gauging whether we believe in Allah or not. Because let's face it, every single person, they say that I'm a religious person. They say that I'm a believer in God. They say that I'm a good person, right? We've never met a person who's like, I'm a bad person. Even criminals, even the thief who goes and he steals, he doesn't say I'm a bad person. He justifies his theft. He says that I steal from the people in the Oakland Hills because they're wealthy, right? I'm just acting like Robin Hood. I'm taking what they have and I'm redistributing to myself and to others who deserve it, right? Even criminals justify their behavior. The truth of it, my brothers and sisters, is that the real you, the real person that you are inside, it comes out during times of difficulty. When we look at the verses of the Holy Quran, there's really a series of beautiful verses on this. That Allah, He says, أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Allah asks this question from us. He says, do the people suppose that they're going to be left alone because they say that we have faith and that they're not going to be tested? And then Allah continues. He says, certainly we tested those who came before them, so Allah will surely know who the truthful are, and He will surely know who are the liars. The times of difficulty, the tests that we go through, the real me begins to come out. The real me that is hiding inside, that monster that potentially could be hiding inside, that is what comes out. If you look at the difficulties of fasting, one of the things that you notice, especially on the first few days, as the nicotine gets cut out, as the caffeine gets cut out, as the food gets cut out, as the sweets get cut out, sometimes we see the people, that nice person that was unbelievably nice before, suddenly he's a monster. And we're like, what happened? He was a good brother. I know him. I've known him my entire life. Why is he acting like this? He's shouting and he's angry. The difficulties, my brothers and sisters, they bring out the real you. Now, let me just throw an example out. Inshallah, this will bring it home. I'm going to throw an example of an individual. That there is an individual, we will call him by the name of Hassan. Hassan, he's a person who is 40 years old. He's unmarried. He lives at home with his parents. And by the way, he has excellent parents. He doesn't have a job. His parents give him everything that he needs. They give him the pocket money. They bring food to his room. They give him everything that he could potentially want. And one of the things that people notice about Hassan is that Hassan, he has amazing akhlaq. Now the question I'm going to pose to all of you is, does Hassan actually have good akhlaq? Because that's the question, isn't it? Now, before I said Hassan has amazing akhlaq. No one disputes this. But the real question is that if Hassan undergoes difficulty, if Hassan is put under pressure, will he still have good akhlaq? That's where the real you comes out, doesn't it? That if Hassan now has to go and work for a living, if Hassan doesn't have people serving him day and night, if Hassan has people mistreating him and treating him in a negative way, is Hassan still going to have good akhlaq? The answer is that even Hassan doesn't know if he has good akhlaq or not. Even Hassan doesn't know. Because Hassan has never been tested. He has never had that opportunity to see what he is inside. So my brothers and sisters, this is the second reason that we undergo difficulties and hardships in our lives. The third reason is that difficulties are a means of getting you to a higher level. There is a universal principle, inshallah, that I'm going to tell you. And this is a principle that works in whatever field you may be. That if an individual wants to grow, whether you are an athlete, whether you are a scholar, whether you are trying to grow spiritually, there is a universal principle that if you apply this universal principle, there will be growth. There will be elevation. What is this principle? The principle is this, my brothers and sisters, that if you want to grow, you have to first apply stress. And then once you have applied that stress, now you have to apply rest. And then you repeat, you again apply stress and then you apply rest. You apply stress and then again you apply rest. And what happens through this process of stressing and then resting and then stressing and then resting is that there is a type of growth which is going to be taking place. If you're an athlete, if you're a bodybuilder, you know this. That you go to the gym and that you lift weights, and as you lift weights, micro tears occur in your muscle fibers. Literally, your muscles are undergoing trauma. They're undergoing damage. And then the muscle begins to grow over it, and you now have become stronger than you were before. If you want to become a scholar, if you want to gain intellectual knowledge, you apply that stress of trying to cram that knowledge into your mind, and then you have to back it off and you have to rest a little bit. And then you have to again go back and you have to study, and then you have to again back it off and you have to rest a little bit. So this is the principle, my brothers and sisters, of how we grow. And by the way, when it comes to spirituality, the exact same thing applies. That if one wants to grow spiritually, we want to get closer to Allah, you have to apply that stress test, and then you have to back it off a little bit and you have to rest a little bit. This is the key, my brothers and sisters, to any type of growth in this dunya. That if we want to grow, this is the step that we have to take. If you could please recite a salawat. I'm going to take a quick sip of water so I can continue to speak. It's iftar time here, so my apologies if it's not iftar there. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Now, at this point, there is an even stranger hadith, because now we're getting into even stranger territory. There is a hadith, my brothers and sisters, that the hadith, it says that if 40 days passes by and nothing happens to you, that you don't undergo even the least bit of difficulty, that you have everything that you need in your life, everything is perfect, you're thinking to yourself, this must be paradise, this must be great. The hadith says, no. Don't think that something is going well. The answer that comes is that perhaps you have been living such a sinful life that you are not worthy of being tested by Allah. What a strange hadith. That if 40 days passes by and everything is perfect in your life, then begin to worry, because perhaps you've been living such a sinful life that Allah sees you as not being worthy of being tested. Let me throw an example out, inshallah, so that we can understand this issue a little bit better. My apologies is going to be a haram example. It was the best example I could come with that it'll get the point across. The example is as follows. Imagine that there's an athlete. Let's make him a basketball player. The athlete is given 2 weeks off by his coach. His coach says, look, you've been working hard. I want you to go take 2 weeks off and rest. The athlete goes, and unfortunately he's not a Muslim. He doesn't know any better. And he spends his time doing things that he shouldn't be doing. He is perhaps ingesting substances into his body that he shouldn't be ingesting. He is staying up late at nights. He's not resting, right? He's not doing anything which is healthy. At the end of the 2 weeks, imagine that this athlete, this basketball player, he goes back to his coach. And he says, Coach, I'm back. I'm ready to be trained. Just imagine the coach. He's going to look at this player. He's going to look at him. Perhaps he's a little bit unsteady. Perhaps his eyes are a little bit bloodshot. And he's going to look at him and he's going to tell him that, no, you're not ready to be trained. You've been doing something where you are unworthy of being elevated, of going to the next level in terms of your basketball practice. Because the coach knows that if I take this athlete and I push him a little bit, what's going to happen to him? He's going to get injured. He's going to perhaps pull a muscle. He's going to perhaps break his leg. He's going to perhaps dislocate something. My brothers and sisters, we're the exact same. That as a result of the sins that we are bringing into ourselves, as a result of the sins that we are committing, at some point we may become unworthy of being elevated by Allah to the next level. Allah, He looks at us, He says, my servant, I want the best for you, but you are unworthy. I know if I push you a little bit, you're not going to get elevated. In fact, you are going to crumble and you're going to be destroyed. Allah, He always wants the best for us, and if He deems us that we are not going to grow, He's not going to test us. Subhanallah, it's one of the things to really think about, because each and every one of us, we want that easy life. We crave that easy life. We seek that easy life. We work day and night to achieve that easy life. But this dunya, it hasn't been created for us to live that easy life if we want to continue to be elevated and continue to grow. Now, let me take a very hard left turn here. And I'm going to narrate a verse in the Quran, because this is one of the very interesting verses that every time I read this, it really amazes me. And so I wanted to narrate it, inshallah, for all of you so that we can, inshallah, benefit. The verse, it says the following. It says, were it not for the danger that mankind would become one community, we would have surely made for those who defy Ar-Rahman. Who is Ar-Rahman? That is Allah. For those who defy, and by the way, the word here, defy, yakfur, right? They do kufr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let me start again. Were it not for the danger that mankind would be one community, we would have surely made for those who do kufr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala silver roofs for their houses and silver stairways by which they ascend. But wait, Allah's not done here. And He continues. He says, and we would have given silver doors for their houses and silver couches upon which they recline. And He's still not done. He says, and we would have even embellished their homes with gold. What in the world is Allah telling us in this verse of the Quran? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's telling us that if I wasn't afraid that everyone would join the kafirs, and by the way, the kafirs are who? Those who recognize the truth and they reject it on purpose. Allah is saying that if I didn't fear that all of the masjids would be emptied, all of the churches would be emptied, all of the synagogues would be emptied, if all of mankind would not turn their backs on the worship of Allah, then I would have given to those who reject me so much wealth that they wouldn't have known what to do with it. They would have begun to build their homes out of pieces of silver and gold. What's going on here, my brothers and sisters? Why would Allah give these individuals this level of wealth in spite of them being those who reject and who kill and who oppress and who commit all sorts of oppression on the earth? How do we understand this? My brothers and sisters, in some cases, people make bad choices. We all do, right? There are times in our lives when we commit a sin. Allah, He corrects our behavior. He throws a hint towards us, perhaps. And He tries to rectify our behavior and say, look, you're going off the wrong path. I want you to come back. These individuals, there are some who instead of coming to the right path, they will say, no, I want to commit this haram act. And so they insist on the haram and they do it again. Allah, again, He encourages them. This is a servant of Allah. He wants the best for them. Again, the individual insists, no, I want to commit haram. He recognizes Allah. He rejects Allah. He wants only what his ego wants. And this individual, he continues on this path. Allah tries to correct, he continues and he pushes harder. Allah tries to correct, he continues and he pushes harder. No matter what Allah does, this individual continues to commit haram after haram. There is a point, my brothers and sisters, where Allah will say, okay, you want to commit haram? Then commit haram. I am going to give you so much wealth that you will drown in the haram, that you will never be able to taste the sweetness of my worship. There's a point where we become irredeemable, my brothers and sisters. That we have committed so many sins that Allah looks and He says, this individual is beyond hope. He has consciously chosen haram after haram after haram. He's not coming back. So let me give him so much wealth until he drowns with this wealth in the dunya. When we look at Fir'aun, this is the example of Fir'aun, that Allah does not even test him with the least amount of test. That Fir'aun has chosen a life of sin. He recognizes Allah. He knows that Allah exists. He rejects Him anyways. He rejects Him anyways. And so Allah says, okay, I'm going to give you an easy life, drowned in the pleasures of this dunya. Now, my brothers and sisters, let's take another left turn, because there is an ajib tradition that I want to mention as well. That a lot of times there are misconceptions about these types of traditions that we have all heard. What are the traditions? The traditions, they go something like this. That as your iman increases, then your tests in this world will also increase. What does this mean? Does this mean that as I begin to read more Quran, and as I begin to read more dua, and as I give more charity, and as I perform the hajj, and as I become closer to Allah through these acts of ibadah, then my life is going to get more difficult? Because let's be honest, if this is the case, maybe I need to back it off a little bit. Maybe I need to read less of the Quran. Maybe I need to read less of the du'as. Definitely don't want to give charity. Hajj, maybe we can delay the hajj a little bit. Right? I want that easy life. I don't want that life where as my iman increases, the difficulties increase. Is this what it means? The answer, my brothers and sisters, is that this isn't the correct understanding of these kinds of traditions. The correct understanding is as follows, that when Allah creates human beings, yes, He is going to test us all. There is a level of baseline testing that we are all going to be going through. That's definitely the case. That every individual in this world, he has a level of baseline test. And by the way, the tests which the people are going through, they're all different. That's why sometimes we look at the people that we know and everything might seem okay in their lives, but they are undergoing some difficult tests that we really don't have knowledge of. Everyone is undergoing their own kind of test in their own kind of way. Allah tests us based on the capacities and the unique characteristics that we have. So the baseline test is there for everyone. So how do we explain this? That as your iman increases, so do the level of difficulties that you undergo. The answer is as follows. Imagine that there is an individual that he begins to read Quran. He begins to perform the Salat al-Layl. He begins to recite dua. He begins to give charity. He begins to do all of these acts of ibadah. As his iman begins to increase, he feels a connection with Allah. He feels a sense of indebtedness with Allah. And so he says to himself that if Allah has given me all of these things, I owe my Creator. I need to give back to my Creator. What can I do? And just throwing an example, imagine that this individual, he goes and he says, okay, I want to build a masjid. I want to build an Islamic school. And he goes and he fundraises and he raises money and he works hard and he builds that masjid or that school. And as a result of building that masjid or school, all sorts of difficulties come his way. The difficulties are natural. The difficulties are by choice. He chose as a result of that iman that was enhanced because of those du'as and those prayers that he was performing. It wasn't that as his iman increased, Allah made life more difficult for him. No. The same thing can be seen in the lives of the Anbiya. Just look at the life of Rasulullah. The difficulties that Rasulullah faced, where was it coming from? It was coming from the people. He would propagate the religion of Islam and the people would persecute him. He would try to correct people's behavior and they would rebel against him. If you look at the example of the Imams, the Ahlul Bayt, all of them, it was a choice. It was all a choice. And so we have to recognize this, that there is a baseline of test, my brothers and sisters, but as your iman increases, so does your feeling of indebtedness to your Creator. And as that feeling of indebtedness grows, then you feel that I need to give back to my Lord. And as you begin to give back, then the natural issues will come your way, as will the sweetness of doing these things for the sake of Allah. And indeed, one of the things I just wanted to quickly mention is that even when we look at the story of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, you know the story of Karbala that we're all familiar with? The story of Karbala is a story of choice. Because I don't know if many people know this, but there are traditions that narrate that when Imam Hussein was in the plains of Karbala, a contingent of angels, they came to him. And the contingent of angels, they said, Ya Imam Hussein, we have been sent by Allah, and we have a command by Allah, that He has told us that if you give us the command, if you tell us to do this, we can go and we can destroy these evil individuals. Imam Hussein, he asks something very beautiful. He says, "O angels, what is most pleasing to my Lord?" The angels, they respond and they say that, Ya Imam, that which is most pleasing to Allah is that you go and you fight and that you are martyred in His way. Imam Hussein says that I will choose the path which is most pleasing to my Lord. It was a choice. These are the Ahlul Bayt. It's not like they were put into a situation that they cannot get out of. They go willingly for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's been narrated these angels would continuously come and they would visit the Imam through the different stages of this journey at Karbala, and they would continuously ask him the same question. And continuously Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he would say the same thing. He would say that I will choose that which is most pleasing to my Lord. This is the path of the Ahlul Bayt, alhamdulillah. Here, my brothers and sisters, we need to really reflect upon our own lives, that Allah will give us easy times and He's going to give us difficult times. You're going to go through both of these and there is no way of escaping. Look at the difficulties that you are going to face as something which has the potential of spiritually elevating you. That difficult time when you're under pressure, when you're suffering, you're trying to see when is this going to be over. Remember one point, that it is at that point that you are becoming closer and closer to your Lord. It is at that point that you are at your nearest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at the same time, also remember to enjoy the good times as well, because Allah will give you both. Right? Life has these very difficult times, these very bitter times, but it also has these unbelievably sweet times as well. So inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen us in His service and to give us the light of understanding and wisdom. And we ask Him to inshallah forgive us our faults and our shortcomings in this holy month of Ramadan, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dua of the 9th day of the month of Ramadan al-Mubarak. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. With the name of Allah, the All-Compassionate, the All-Merciful. Allahumma ja'al li fihi nasiban min rahmatikal wasi'ah. O Allah, on this day grant me a share of your greater mercy. Wahdini fihi libarahinika sati'a, and guide me to your glaring proofs. وخذ بناصيتي إلى مرضاتك الجامعة, and lead me to your all-encompassing pleasure. بمحبتك يا أمل المشتاقين, I ask you by your love, O the hope of the eager ones. Brothers and sisters, in today's dua, we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us His pleasure. And also we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us patience. And we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have istighfar in this month. Brothers and sisters, in order to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure in this great month, we need to understand that whatever we are asking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should be mindful towards others about what they are looking from us. That's why kama tudin tudan, the way we treat others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will treat us on the judgment day. First and foremost, in order to get Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure, the first thing is being kind and nice towards others, especially the weak ones. The second one is to have a patience. The third one is to have istighfar. Fourth one is to have a faith and dedication and devotion towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The sixth one is to guide others towards the great pleasure and bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by doing amr bil ma'ruf and nahi anil munkar. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله أكبر. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين عليًا ولي الله. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وأبناء المعصومين حجج الله أكبر. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. وصلى الله على محمد وآله وسلم.